to kick things off, we're going to be talking about cloud-based audio production today. My name is Jim Kidwell. We're here to talk a little bit about our production workflows with broadcasting. My name is Jim Kidwell. I'm the Senior Product Marketing Manager here at Audinate. I've been here for about a year, been working in software for many decades now, and have gone through the ups and downs of growth within software industries, and am excited to be here at Audinate talking a little bit more about our software applications, and one of them being the solution that we're providing as Dante Connect. Here with two broadcast experts in the industry that have been with Audinate for a long time, Frank Paticala and Will Waters, and I'd like to give them an opportunity to introduce themselves. Frank and Will, would you like to take it away?
Hey, I'm Frank Paticala, Senior Technical Sales Engineer at Audinate. Been in the industry for many years, and I've been doing that fine line of AV, IT, and broadcast. So a lot of my background is in IT, networking, and cybersecurity. So as the industry started pivoting to this, it was perfect. I just want to add that this is not a reason why you shouldn't go for cloud production. That is on us. And I'll pass it over to Will.
Thanks, Frank. Yeah, my name is Will Waters, Principal Product Manager at Audinate. I take care of the Dante Connect solution, of course, with all of our software products. But to that point, you know, it is live, and that's what we're here to talk about and discuss. My background has been in working with moving media across software and IP networks, really for the better part of 2 decades now. Been fantastic watching the industry change and innovate, but mostly it's about the folks like yourselves that are on the call, the stories that you're telling and how you're able to really create new things with the technology that we provide. And we're here to talk about that today. Now, I think that we had a poll that actually through some of the technical difficulties we put up, but Jim, I'll go ahead and let you talk about that, because we did want to get a sense of kind of where everybody was thinking and what they were doing when it comes to cloud production.
Yeah, so you'll probably see, I just popped it up in the Zoom here. We asked a question about cloud broadcasting usage and planning and where people are right now. And we noted that about 30% of you were using the cloud right now as part of your production workflows right now. Many of you were still in the planning phases to be implemented within the next 6 months to 2 years. And we even had a large number that were here. They're not sure why they're here, but we're happy that you're here anyway to learn a little bit more about what's happening with broadcast. And thanks for letting us know. And we'll take this into consideration as we talk more in this webcast. So as we're moving forward, we'd like to first define kind of like what the status quo is with traditional OB truck broadcasting productions, and kind of take that as a baseline for where we're going to discuss how the cloud can help augment and implement new options and workflows within broadcasting. So, Will, would you like to take it away?
Sure, we can definitely talk about that. You know, I think over the course of the last century, really, when we think about audio broadcasting, we know and have a very well-established way of being able to tell stories and be able to communicate through audio production. But there are some limitations as far as how you need to think about and design any system, whether you're in a truck and you're thinking about kit, cabling, you know, the capabilities that technology can bring together, and then of course number of signals that you can push and provide. But it does lend itself to being like having influence on the content and how you're putting things together, because there may be physical distances that you need to be concerned about, whether not just from a technological standpoint, from just a personnel standpoint, or where your talent, those that are contributing into the storytelling, are able to sit so that they can see, hear, or be able to be concerned with the actual content as you're creating that production. And many times, if you're working with video in OB trucks, a lot of times things are, of course, put together, embedded with, muxed with video streams, so that when you're thinking about things from an audio standpoint, many times you have to really give considerations to, well, which audio channels need to ride with what video sources, and then you get into some really technical weeds of clocking and distance and latency, and you know, these are big concerns. However, there are ways to deal with those, but there are modern challenges really bring about more things than just like the physical setup. It's getting that content to all the different niche audiences, being able to repurpose that content. Maybe you're dealing with multiple languages. Maybe you need to repurpose and deal with spatial audio. You have more channels, more microphones that we're working with, more sources. You have to be able to work and process that in ways that, in some cases, even from a truck standpoint, you just don't physically have the room to stack all of those particular things up together. So from that standpoint, Frank, what have you seen? I know that you've been actually in the field working with some folks. Like, what are some of those technical challenges that they're facing with?
I mean, I hate to be cliched as I start this response off, and we just recently came out of this massive thing called the pandemic. I think what that instead of calling it the pandemic, we'll just call it the great disruptor, right? From a technology perspective, what it did is it disrupted the standard the way of looking at things. Accessibility became a challenge, travel became a challenge. So even though the technology was available, we just didn't have the resources. And I think one of the biggest challenges that we faced was just, as there is up in the slide, the utilization of technology assets. That was a massive challenge as far as is concerned, and people were trying to solve that, right? Yeah, and I think that leads into the talent part of it that is closely associated with the technologies. But that's kind of like the major ones that I saw. The distribution of technology, the availability of talent became massive issues as far as modern challenges with production.
Indeed. I think that that's one of the things, though, that you have. There's a lot of pressures that get put on broadcasters because it's not just a matter of moving to cloud. I mean, the whole point is to have more flexibility, to be able to get your audience where they happen to be, and of course, be able to fundamentally repurpose the what you're currently working with, keep those costing budgets in control, but be able to really make sure that you're targeting those people where they need. So those pressures really come in. I think, Jim, if we can move on to the next slide, this is really fundamentally, it's the versatility and the flexibility that is being able to deliver that is really driving the need for the cloud, because fundamentally, many things in production today can only be done if you're agile with software. And of course, that means that you need networking to be able to move your media from back and forth. But I think, Jim, you had some market research that you'd like to talk about here.
Yeah, it's the broadcasters needing to respond to the actual changing marketplace out there is something that, if you're in broadcasting, this is not new to you, but the technology enabling you to do new things to reach your audience where they are is really important. And one of the quotes that you see on the right here from Pew Research is that 60% of Americans under 30 prefer to stream content online rather than watch it on TV. That change was huge in itself, but then this speaks to more about like meeting your audiences where they are and acquiring new audiences. So if you've seen a lot of the different work that's been done with the Olympics recently, you've seen that the streams that are coming out of the OBS over in France has provided streams to different networks to do lots of different things with them. And this can enable, utilizing the cloud can enable you to do many different things like that, whether that's including people who are doing localization of different commentators on top of the actual content itself, or providing the streams into multiple panel displays like you're seeing on YouTube and Peacock, where you can have multiple different streams coming directly to that one window, and people can just click on each one and get different types of commentary over the different streams coming directly from that. So there's a lot of different content delivery options that you have within the cloud, and they can augment it there too. And what we're speaking about with Dante Connect is more along the production side, but moving things to the cloud, it gives you so much additional power to grow the market and expand into areas that you may not be able to touch before. So it's nice to have that option out there that you may not have even considered before, because you're used to working with on-premise, hardware-based or truck-based based workflows that don't take advantage of the potential expansion and options that are available within the cloud.
Yeah, so the benefits are certainly out there. And again, as I mentioned before, it's not just moving to the cloud for the sake of moving to the cloud. Really, it delivers the flexibility and the scalability that we need in modern production today. And that also comes with being able to have faster deployment times. One of the things that we've noticed, and we'll talk about here in just a moment, is just the fact of being able to set up and thinking about a new production. You get benefits of being able to set up a control room, being able to set up a mix station, and being able to deliver signals and really be able to compress the time from design, architecture, all the way through to actually getting on air where you can deliver and start grabbing revenue. The fact that you have processing power just really at a moment's notice delivers a capability, like I mentioned before, you can't always fit it into a closet, into a local server room, or into an OB truck. It gives you the ability to expand as necessary depending on where your audience happens to be. We've seen this, of course, happen on the distribution side for many, many years, but this is now true, and it is happening and is available on the production side. And then that actually leads into really an economy of scale, because fundamentally it's software, whether that's running in a server that happens to sit in the truck in a hybrid way, or being able to actually take advantage of things moving into the compute that is available in these cloud services. You deliver that all on a global distribution backbone, which of course gives you access to teams, or as a business owner and producer, it also allows you to increase your market reach so that you can then actually deliver and service to customers in areas that you may have previously been denied that due to geographical limitations. So that gets us into this idea of distributed production. I think, Frank, if you can take us through that, this is where we were able to see that, it's not just a matter of what was happening in a room or in a facility. Now it's beyond that.
Exactly. I think what we're seeing a lot of today is that just because of the flexibility that these technologies give you, you're not looking at localized events. You're looking at global deployments where different components of the traditional production network are now located geographically in distant locations. So your OB truck could be at your event site, but your TD could be located elsewhere. You could have your A1 in another location, and your guests coming in from anywhere across the globe. Now, these have been done in the broadcast market for a long time. These are not new things. There's always been some flexibility to it. But the fact that you're now able to use software to build on these things and be flexible and change and modify your production workflows to fit the convenience of both your production, the event, and the individuals involved is just massive, right? So I think when we started talking about cloud production, a lot of the conversations around cloud production was, yes, it gives you flexibility. It's great from a cost perspective. And I think over the last few years of being in the cloud production realm, broadcasters have realized that it's not necessarily about the cost, right? It's that the cost is a factor when you're trying to look at it from a bigger picture, because you're trying to encompass more into that individual production. You can actually do more. And Jim brought up a good point before about the content distribution methods have changed. But I'll also add to that, the content consumption patterns have also changed because of the demographic that's coming in. We're living in a social media generation. People love to see social media networks. They love to do YouTube, and they love to do cable cutting, and they love to see multi-screen. There's so many different types of things that are not necessarily part of the traditional broadcast method that comes into this. So overall, it's not just about an apples to apples kind of comparison where we're saying that, hey, do the cloud and you're going to save X number of money. It goes beyond cost. And Will, I mean, I want you to chime in because you've practically been doing this for a while now, and you've seen the evolution of how people have adopted this. What do you think about that comment when I say about the
It's always about following where the consumer, where the listeners, and where the viewers need to be, and being able to repurpose. Obviously, you can't create a single production for individuals, but you do need to be able to repurpose for the niche audiences depending on where they are, so that the various platforms you can take your production and be able to deliver that where it needs to be. And again, we've seen this with a lot of multi-language opportunities, or with the ability to basically distribute those production personnel so that we can then expand out and get more events, whether they're games, whether they're corporate events, whether they're it's something that's happening in a situation where you need to get out to more people, more content, and more places, but also being able to not have individual break your costs from that standpoint. We need to be able to define that from a revenue standpoint. And fundamentally, it's for faster turnaround as well. If you're not in production, generally, you're not bringing that revenue. So that leads us into, well, why are we here? What are we going to talk about today? I mean, we've spent all this time just talking about the industry and what's going on and why cloud production. that brings us really into what is Dante Connect. And I think everyone on this webinar today has experience with Dante in some form, but what Dante Connect allows for is fundamentally the same workflows, the same capabilities and technologies that you work with Dante on your on-prem environments. You can now extend that into the virtualized space and of course into the cloud, so that you can then actually have that same Dante experience with cloud-based software applications and production tools. And this leverages cloud-based infrastructure that really can take advantage of the investments that you already have either in your trucks or in your facility, regardless of what type of device that is, whether they're microphones, whether they're mixing desks, DSPs, or intercoms, or any other plethora of Dante-enabled devices. Fundamentally, it gives you the opportunity to produce anywhere, utilizing this technology with centralized audio production if you're actually moving that in the cloud. For many, many years in the audio world, we've had to rely on tracking with the video production, which also meant that from a mix engineering standpoint, we really had to limit ourselves to what the capabilities are of being that transport on the mux with the video streams. Today, we can now start pushing the Dante audio directly into cloud-based audio mixers and audio DSPs, so that you can actually do true mixing in the cloud and be able to expand your capabilities. Frank, I know that you've seen this and actually have architected some of these things in the field.
Yeah, and so that brings us to the conversation about essentially why Dante, right? And Dante I'd like to believe it's a household brand name at this point as far as network media technologies are concerned. Everybody understands Dante. Everybody has seen Dante. And if not, if you're new to the world of Dante, please check out our website and go to our training platforms. We have some excellent trainings that we put out there. There's our level 1, 2, 3 certification, so that will give you like a good little entry point into the world of Dante. So that actually leads to this whole conversation of why the Dante platform. What is the Dante platform? What does Dante offer you? For so long, as far as broadcasters are concerned and their deployments as far as audio goes, Dante was seen as that transport mechanism that does great. We have a lot of options in terms of microphones and amps and mixed desks and all that. But then, once it comes to the larger workflow, we got to convert it into whatever existing technology is out there. The fact that we have evolved today into being a one-stop shop for all things media, which includes our audio endpoints, our video endpoints, giving people the ability to control and manage your devices from anywhere, being able to transport media signals anywhere and everywhere, along with the biggest friend of all IT folks out there, security, and the fact that we enable a developer ecosystem by letting our partners become not just strong producers of products that are on-prem, which you've seen. There are great manufacturer partners out there that embed Dante into their technologies, but the fact that even as they grow and evolve their technologies into cloud platforms, you now have an ecosystem, right? I think we have a slide up here just to give you a point of comparison as to what Dante represents as far as the product portfolios out there are concerned. So Dante and Audinate, we work with close to 600 manufacturer partners. That is a growing number every day. There are more than 4,000 products currently available, and there's about 250,000 and more certified users, and 5 million and more of an install base that is currently deployed as far as Dante is concerned. Now, I gave you all these numbers. We're talking about Dante, the platform, and the different things that we do. Why? We get back to that initial question, but why? Why would you want to do that? Well, Dante's Dante wherever you're doing it. Now, the original conversation that we were talking about was Dante Connect and being able to transport your media, your audio from point to point. What we're saying is that the same Dante that you're used to on-prem is equally usable with the same amount of a learning curve because it's still Dante. You're still using Dante Controller. You're still using your management platforms, and you can evolve that into being in the cloud. And that flexibility is massive because a lot of people everybody understands Dante. And now that you're doing it in the cloud, your workflow doesn't have to change. It's just that now you're transporting and muxing signals or routing signals from 2 points across the globe. And that leads into a conversation about what does this large ecosystem look like. And well, I mean, work closest with this, so I'll let you take this one.
Well, again, you mentioned that that's one of the powerful realities of the Dante ecosystem is that there's so many different players in there. But when it comes to, again, to the cloud and working with software in there, we are working with the major manufacturers that allow for production to happen. And of course, Dante is that transport, that management, all of those different values that you brought up. But even we have questions regarding like, well, what about those mixers, the DSP? You know, we've seen and worked with multiple POCs with solid state logic, with Riedel, with BizRT and their products. And of course, being able to bring in and have that audio production that's now happening in the cloud out there. The Connect ecosystem expands out from whether you're running, and this gets a bit more into the technical requirements, but for those applications that are running in Windows, we provide virtual sound card interfaces that show up in the Dante ecosystem. You can route directly within the Dante controller. We have gateway software that helps with the various clocking and latency challenges that you might get from working between environment zones within the cloud or even from on-prem to cloud. And then, of course, being able to inject directly into some software applications with the Dante SDK, such as what Solid State Logic, SSL, and Sienna have recently done. This really allows for a full ecosystem that's continuing to build. So while you see these vendors on the slide today, there are many, many more that are looking to be releasing products and really bringing that from a lot of the feedback that they've been receiving, I'm sure from many of you that are even on the call today. So fundamentally though, how do we actually make this happen, right? So we recently did a proof of concept. Sorry to get the right words here. Frank, I think you can take us through with an actual sports production. This was featured back in the spring in the Northern Hemisphere with some things that worked with the NHL and AWS and a few of the vendors that you previously saw.
That's right. So we had an actual NHL game that went live on your typical Tier 1 broadcast, but it was completely produced on the back end by using the AWS infrastructure, leveraging the many partners that you talk about. I know that I don't know how many of you can see that drawing out there. It's available online, and we're more than happy to share it with everyone. But basically representing the different components that are involved, right? The game was actually happening in Washington, D.C., but the entire production, including the A1s, the TDs, the replay operators, everybody was actually in Secaucus, New Jersey. So what we did was a distributed production like we talked about before, where all the operators were able to be flexible. Now, we had each person in workstations. They were doing their own thing. Even though we essentially put in this control room over a couple of days, essentially spinning it up, the fact of the matter is any of those individuals could have been anywhere globally with access to the same features, functionality that they're doing, because the actual meat of the production, the processing behind it, was happening in the cloud, connected to the larger network, and it was just being broadcast live. So a massive amount of flexibility, being able to do a game like that, which went fairly well, and it was quite the amazing experience. I was there. I could actually see people operating and doing their thing. And one of the questions I went around asking is like, what does it feel like? And they said, oh, it's the same thing. It's what I do every day. And that exactly is the goal, right? When we talk about a lot of disruptions, we're trying to change the technology. But at the end of the day, the operators, the users who are doing their day-to-day tasks need to be able to comfortable in an environment without them having to go through hours and hours of training and changing the way they do things. And that's the flexibility that Dante offers you, right? I think the first time the intercom connections went live from DC to New Jersey, it was quite like an aha moment for everyone, saying like, hey, I can hear you. Yeah, I mean, it's completely over Dante. So I think what we've been able to establish with this and several other proof of concepts and customers over the last year-ish that the product has been out is that Dante Connect essentially gives you the flexibility to not just produce things in the cloud, but also leverage your existing architecture, your existing designs, your existing studios, the Dante networks that you've built over years and built these massive deployments that have millions in investment, and use them as part of a cloud architecture without having to do a ton of format conversion and changing things from one format, which is the bane of most cloud productions. At the end of the day, by the time you're hearing something, that thing has gone through like 17 different conversions. And yes, it's, it becomes a good enough situation, but we're actually offering you the ability to do, what you're comfortable with, the perfect situation. But that's like the NHL example right there.
Frank, if I can help you drill in there a little bit, because you brought up something that I think is something that people ask quite a bit. And you mentioned that all of these various conversions that happen in the chain, but that also increases latency in the entire chain when it goes through. So one of the questions that I receive often is, well, how are you dealing with it latency? And then if we go back to what we discussed about distributed production, it's just like, would you really ever be comfortable like with dealing with latency? And then what about side tone that happens to be in that announcer's ear? How do we deal with that? And I think that's one of those things where, can you speak to that at all?
Yeah, so I can give you there's at the end of the day, latency as far as Dante products, we deal with deterministic latency. We are able to set the latency in each devices, and that's kind of, you've come to be comfortable with that 40 millisecond Dante latency that you've seen. But what products like the gateway in this chain allow you is to absorb any amount of latency. But when you leverage the architecture that cloud vendors like AWS with their Direct Connect and Google with their technologies and every other platform out there offer, along with some networking in the cloud, we've been able to send audio streams from Sydney to New York with like 65 milliseconds of latency, which is extremely acceptable in terms of the distance and the production involved, right? That, along with the ability to build out software-based solutions that make things flexible, has become extremely helpful. And what that does is that you are now able to build out workflows that are driven and purpose-built to the audio conversation. A lot of times in cloud production, what happens is that the audio part of it becomes a part of the video workflow. And we all know that even though audio seems to be that neglected child, it is the most significant part of a production. Now, as we started this Zoom webinar, if you're able to hear us, I don't think we'd have received like 40,000 messages in the Q&A, right? But the fact is we disrupted the audio. And so what this does is that it brings it back to the original intent behind a lot of productions where the user experience is important. And that's what the technology enables. So, I mean, there's a lot happening here, but great question, Will. I love that.
I bring into that, and I guess beyond all that, there are ways to architect around some of those challenges as well, and that's the benefit about having the ecosystem that's synonymous, whether in the virtual space or you're in the physical on-prem space, is that you can then really route your audio in ways so that you can get around or deal with, maybe getting around is the improper way to state it, but you can deal with the law of physics challenges that come to dealing with distributed production. So a few other things that, and I did see that there are some questions that are starting to pop up. We do have some Q&A time we did want to reserve, and we'll get to those specifically. But I think that, from a technology standpoint, we did want to give everyone an overview of like this is happening today. And I think fundamentally, one of the things about it is how do you get started? Jim, do you have some questions we want to kind of work through at this stage?
Yeah. So I wanted to launch another poll here real quick here. This is more along the lines of asking you about your career and how you feel that you are moving forward with the technology. We want to better understand, are you prepared? The A1s of the world and the people who are working in broadcast productions, are you ready to do this? Are you ready to absorb those new tools? Are you getting into the cloud? And sometimes it's like, yeah, I understand that, maybe this isn't the right thing, and it might feel like it's a tough move, but you got to go there. So we'd like to better understand where you are. So now I'm going to leave this poll open and move forward real quick here to the next slide. A lot of people have been asking questions about what are the specifics? How do I actually implement this? What do I do? And we understand that, there is a lot of different variations about how exactly everybody connects everything. And there's no two solutions that are exactly alike out there. So in order to deploy Dante Connect, we've worked with integration partners. These are the ones that we've chosen right now. We have 5 solution partners that are out there. All of them work with the various different cloud providers that we support out there. And they're the ones that are bringing their expertise from the broadcast industry into how these things are deployed on the cloud. So we've worked with all of these different agencies to fully train them and get them fully up to speed about how they can actually implement Dante Connect and how they can integrate our cloud solutions into their deployment. So we've worked on both AWS, Google, as well as even on dark fiber now too. So while that may not be an officially supported platform right now, we're just AWS and Google. These guys will be willing to work with you to make it work in whatever type of solution that you have out there. Will, did you want to add to that?
Well, I just want to say when it comes to any of these systems and setup, if you think about a traditional, like you're going to design and put a truck on out on the road, you're going to have various stages of design, of planning, of architecture, of procurement, all of these things that you work through. And, even though we're moving into software and might be utilizing virtualized servers, the compression of being able to procure, it basically comes down to zero, but there's still design and architecture and planning that needs to go into that. And I think that's one of the things about integration that's really important. So we have fantastic integration partners that can really help out. And, fundamentally, there's so many things about just getting started. So having a call and a conversation, whether that's with us or with one of our partners, I think is really super important. But, we should probably go and reserve some time, since we're a little bit late today, with some of the Q&A so we can get into a bit of the weeds. We wanted to give a full overview, but Jim, if you want to lead us over into our transition, I think we might have some, I'm going to review a few of the questions and make sure that we can answer as many as we can get to.
Yeah,
I
I just wanted to add that I know there's been a lot of questions about specifics. The webinar today was intended to have like an overview of things and just to give you our perspective on why this whole technology exists. We do travel a lot. We go to events. We go meet up with customers. We're more than open to having extremely specific technical conversations with anyone, and that's the intent, just to raise the interest in here. And that's why we have a contact slide here where all of our emails are there. You can connect with us through email or on LinkedIn or in the socials, but please reach out and we're more than happy to drill down into your particular scenario. But yeah, Jim, lead the way in terms of the Q&A. I know there's quite a few. I see a lot of them.
Yeah. Here's one that I just wanted to kick it off with. I don't have any experience with the cloud. How do I get started? Like, what is that first step that you would recommend people to get going with?
Right.
I'll take that. I think a lot of people, interestingly enough, even the poll was pointing to what about 50% of the people who are kind of preparing for the future, kind of getting there. So in terms of Dante, your knowledge, I'll talk about the knowledge gap first. Dante is Dante. So the certification programs that you can cover on our training side, the level 1, 2, 3 certification, the DDM admin course, and the webinars and the information that we put out there is relevant to everything, including Dante Connect. On the platform side, I guess my response would go back to several years ago as to how I would answer this question when we first started Dante conversations on the internet. We've not created a new technology. We are leveraging an existing platform. So Ethernet-based technologies, cloud networking, you would have to drill down into your platform of choice. If your intent is to build solutions using AWS, then there are certification programs with AWS, similarly with the Google or Microsoft, but the platform is the platform, leverage the resources out there. But with a combination of both of them, you should be able to get that entry point. And obviously that's where we come in as a resource when you're lost. And the network of partners that we have, both on the manufacturer and the reseller / integrator side, will be able to make those connections for you to be able to establish your projects.
All right. Thanks, Frank. Here's a question from Ryan Vogel. He said, I noticed in the NHL slide that the remote site was connected through WireGuard VPN. Is there any thought to having Dante products that are able to connect to the VPN directly without needing external hardware?
That's a great question, and very astute in what we were looking there. So Dante, as it operates today, is looking for that, the same type of networking. So we have to have an overlaid routes that come from your cloud environment into your on-prem environment. There is a very healthy roadmap for Dante Connect and looking to ease the use of that. So today we would be utilizing, and we prefer a very strong connection. Dante, it's the same Dante audio, it's uncompressed. So that means that your best experience is going to be utilizing really high quality lines, whether that's Amazon's Direct Connect or Google's Interconnect services. It is absolutely possible to utilize overlay VPN such as WireGuard. It's just keeping the resiliency of that particular network connection up is an important factor, which is why we very much are working with integration partners who specialize in that today. There's more than one way to do this. So WireGuard just happens to be a solution. There's many to choose from. Whether that is something that runs locally within the networking hardware itself, or whether that is an overlaid software endpoint.
Yeah, and Will, I think there was another question on there in terms of like, will Connect eventually support video? I'd like you to respond to that, but I just wanted to add something to what you said. In terms of the bandwidth requirements for Dante Connect, you're still operating on the same Dante principles. A Dante Flow has 4 channels of audio. 4 channels of audio, a flow takes about 6 megabits of traffic. So do the math, and based on your channel count, that's what you're looking for. So in an audio-only scenario, you're still looking at a very low bandwidth utilization, even though you're doing uncompressed audio. But video, well, I mean, it's like, I'll flip that over to you.
Well, and video, I would say that today we're looking at ensuring that we are delivering our audio professional customers the ability to create audio primary workflows. Will video come in the future? Well, I say that it's conceivable, but I'm not ready to give a promise on that, because truthfully, there's a lot of ways to move our video between cloud and ground and cloud today. We really want to focus on making sure that we're servicing, at least at this stage, the audio workflows, so that we can really have those high quality workflows from an audio first standpoint.
So there are a number of questions in here about looking to see some diagrams, and I'm wondering if we might be able to dive into some of our diagrams here. Then I think that might help answer some of the other questions. There was one particular question about whether the audio was compressed or not. So let's dive into this remote production example here, and maybe we can talk a little bit about where audio may be compressed or not compressed. Will or Frank, do you want to take this?
I can take this. So this is kind of like a basic example of what we envision as a remote production. You have a media center where there's Dante hardware. You leverage an external clock source, a reliable source like a GPS clock that drives the on-prem hardware. Using a connection that's reliable like Direct Connect, we go into a cloud infrastructure where there is your SSL mixing platforms, DDM, which you've heard of and used before in the past. Is also the management platform behind Dante Connect. And along with the gateway, we're now able to have a fully staged virtual production environment. But we also have what is called a remote monitor. So one of the questions that was there in the chat that I saw was, is Dante Connect audio uncompressed? It is uncompressed, but because of the way the production workflows have been around and what we've been seeing, there is the need to bring in remote contribution or giving people the ability to remote monitor without having them leverage a ton of Dante devices and figure out the clocking architecture and all that. So in those situations, we do have a compressed form of Dante that works specifically in the Connect environment that feeds both the monitoring and the contribution aspects of it. Essentially, once you work with your IT teams, you're able to generate URLs, which can be linked to browsers on any device, open up the browser platform, and now you're able to contribute and monitor depending on your use case. Now, as far as the audio platform operators are concerned, in Dante Controller, they still appear as compressed as Dante flows, so you're able to patch audio between them back and forth. So kind of giving you that flexibility. So that is the only tools currently in the Dante Connect suite of offerings that are compressed. and that is purpose built for the monitoring slash contribution aspect of it. But outside of that, everything is uncompressed Dante audio. So it actually, I can also answer another question that I saw in the chat. Dante hardware that you use on-prem can be used in the Dante Connect environment. There are no restrictions there. Obviously, similar to on-prem architectures where you need to design what the clocking would look like in a multi-domain or multi-subnet environment, you would need to have certain considerations. But as far as general use cases are concerned, your Dante device on-prem can be used in the cloud environment as it is.
All right, I'm digging through some of the other questions here. One question specifically, I'm not sure if we've answered it yet, is like, will you offer a separate certification for Dante Connect? Will you offer advanced architecture training as well? So right now we do have a number of different training options out there. Right now, there is not a specific Dante Connect option. I think both Frank and Will have mentioned that the advanced trainings that are available, like if you go through 1, 2, and 3, you're going to be really well prepared for what you need to do for Dante Connect. So I think those are great, great resources to actually be able to dig into. So here's another question that I kind of wanted to dig into a little bit is about licensing and how that actually functions. There are a number of questions about how to acquire a license and how to actually to test this and use this. Will, would you like to dig into like how the deployment works and why how working with integration partners works?
Sure. Before I dive into the business side of things, just to tag into what you were just discussing as far as training, and once you're through the Dante, the standard certifications, everything, and this answers another question. We do have deployment guides for how to deploy the Dante Connect environments into, say, AWS. We have documented quite a bit for AWS deployments. And as well, and now with Google Cloud deployments. So being able to utilize both of those skills allows for I think quite a bit to get started, especially if you then combine that with what you with training you would have on your specific cloud environment. Now, as far as the business side goes, the way Dante Connect operates is that we work with entitlements that are really managed through our domain management. So when you're in a software world, one of the ideas and one of the powerful, flexible features is that really you only need to be able to utilize devices when you're actually in use. Otherwise, they don't exist. So Dante Connect platform really allows for all of the Dante licenses to be either concurrent based off of the event. So consume up to as whatever you need on a really on a per event basis, and you can work that out. We have a few different ways to go about that through our reselling partners, and so that you can work to get started. And we do have the ability to have some, even low-cost solutions for being able to set up and give opportunity for proof of concepts. Or we understand that development is one of those things that needs to happen within production. So we do have some options, and that would really be best served individually through our reselling partners.
All right, thank you, Will. Here's a question.
Let me just say that real quick, because I just saw this specifically in the question. To answer directly, can you spin up additional resources and instantly license those instances? Yes, we do have availability for that.
All right. There are a couple of other like use case specific examples here that people are asking about. So how does audio engineering work offsite in a live music environment? And there's also one about future growth in post-production facilities. I think we do have a couple of examples specifically that we can showcase about post-production. But maybe I'll drop over to this post-production slide here, and then you guys can also maybe talk a little bit about live music and how that could or could not work with Dante Connect.
Yeah. So Frank, do you want to take this? You want to?
Yeah, I mean, so like we've been trying to say from the beginning, the intent is to not create something new. We are giving you the ability to maintain the platforms and the user experience that you've come to use. So as far as regular A1s functioning with their mix desks or other post-production or audio engineering for that matter, the intent is that we are taking the processing of that into the cloud. Yet as far as the your profiles are concerned, you now have the flexibility to do it on-prem. Obviously, there are mixing platforms available in the cloud like SSL, which give you interfaces which you can log into using whatever remote connection methodology there is. Or you can actually have actual physical desks and control panels that you can utilize on your on-prem locations. You can, in fact, connect some of them to these existing technologies, so you're not even having to change that. It is just the same port. It's just that the mixing component has now been offloaded into a cloud environment.
And then I think, Jim, thank you, Frank. You were mentioning the live sound. I don't think we have a specific diagram on that, but I know that we have worked with some concepts on that. Now, I just want to be very plain about this. Like we haven't really worked with, and as far as like actually doing live mixing of a live sound scenario and pushing out the cloud. But what is actually very common there is that you want to have a broadcast mix that may include even spatial audio or say Dolby Atmos or something from that nature, being able to basically take the Dante signals directly from the microphones, directly from the stage boxes or the mixing desk, and being able to really repurpose and push those signals into the cloud without having to touch the on-prem layout, the environment at all, and then be able to deliver a spatial audio mix that can then be attached to the broadcast feed. Really brings out the ability to even you have extended and expanded revenue streams for even live events. One other thing I saw here, if I could just go through this, someone asked that Daniel asked if Linux OS is often the preferred platform for cloud services. When will Audinate support Linux? That's a really astute question. One of the things that we have in the Dante Connect ecosystem now is the ability for vendors that are developing on Linux to be able to put the Dante container directly within their software application. And then that is licensed through the Dante Connect environment. So this is actually what SSL has recently done with their product. We have, I think Sienna has just started shipping within their processing engine, utilizing this SDK, and then there are quite a few that I can't talk about yet, but I'm sure if you if you look out for press releases, they will be coming online, very quickly. One of the reasons we went this route, as opposed to just having a standard DVS or virtual sound card in the Linux environment, is a little bit of the variability in the Linux world. Low latency kernels, bit of technical weeds, things like ALSA drivers. I won't bore you with all of this, but I think it's better put at this stage for those that are attuning with audio in their software applications to have the ability to have that tight integration with Dante. And if the demand still exists there, we'll consider end user tools in the Linux environment sometime in the future.
Thanks, guys. Couple other. Oh, sorry, Frank, go ahead.
Real quick question. It's a comment there that I think it's the most. It sounds basic, but it is such a huge thing. One of the questions. I know my biggest concern with experiment with cloud is accidentally running up a ridiculous bill. Such an important question. And so one of the things that we did as we developed Dante Connect was also start off with automation platforms with which Dante Connect works. Now, so Dante as a platform, with our management layers of DDM and Director and others, we have implemented an API into our management platforms, giving you the ability to control and manage Dante devices. That extends into the Connect environment, and that, along with automation platforms, means that you can actually make sure that things are shut off. We actually have our own global demo environment where we can, with a click of a button, just shut off all the different instances or turn them on. So there's a lot of automation options out there. So if that is a fear thing, we'd be more than happy to talk to it. I'm sure your partners on the cloud/networking side, in terms of AWS's and the Googles of the world, they will also attest that there are several ways of making sure that doesn't.
And that brings out an important thing. I know we've run out of time, and again, apologies on the top end, but I think that's one of the most important concepts of what we can do in the cloud. As you mentioned, for our global demo, and this also works with those that are doing production, their system does not exist, and they're not paying for it unless they are actually using it. And that is a really important factor that you can then, that goes to that idea of scalability, flexibility, that you can really spin up and spin down as needed. We have customers that have utilized automation scripts that will basically, at the push of a button, create, I say proverbial button, running a script really. It creates an entire mixing station desk with the audio patches that exist in the virtual world, and then they can bring that to extend from their on-prem Dante solutions.
Great. If you guys are okay, we can, since we started a little bit late, can we go an extra 10 minutes? Is that okay with you guys?
I'm okay as long as our viewers, don't mind, spending the time with us.
The viewers want to stick around for another 10 minutes since we started 10 minutes late. Let's go ahead and keep going here. So there are a number of different questions here. I just want to dig into a few of them. One of them says, once Dante audio is in the cloud, can audio from other cloud services be converted into Dante?
The answer is yes. Now that's not Audinate. We're not providing what would be any type of conversion services directly out of Dante. However, that is why we have so many different partners. One of the recent ones come online is the Sienna processing engine that has a multitude of different sources or different protocols that they can work with the Dante. There is Loud and Mean Audio, Llama, with their Automix device that they have the ability to be able to work with there. But that actually extends out into even more of the integrated products, such as from the TriCaster Vector from VizRT, or even with Grass Valley's AMP, to be able to basically attach Dante patch points or cross points into other protocols. Let me not mention Readle. Readle also has the ability to do some conversion. So again, that comes into the integration and the design and the architecture that's necessary.
I think that leads to a good question that was there early on. It was about can we use 2110 production with Dante audio in it? So I'll give you the response in terms of what we do today on-prem. Using our management platforms using DDM, we are able to bridge between 2110 and Dante. Similarly, I mean, you probably know that most Dante devices support AES-67 natively, but our management platforms do kind of enable us to expand on that. As far as the cloud is concerned, currently it's still a Dante workflow, so some of those conversions would need to happen on-prem. But that leads to a kind of, I just wanted to add on to what Will said. This is an ecosystem where people can build what they want. And that's why we are enabling our developers. So if you go online and search for X platform to Dante bridge, you'll find all kinds of devices out there. So in a scenario where there is another platform that's prevalent in the cloud, we're not opposed to any form of that. We're enabling everyone. Like we want you to be flexible with what you're doing. So whatever technology is there, speak to your partners, and if they want to take the leap into building that bridge, that's where we'll come in and we'll try to support those things. And it's the same principle as what we've been doing all these years on-prem. We'll do it in the cloud as well.
Okay, thanks, Frank. There are a couple other questions here too. One is specific about Dante Domain Manager and enrolling devices. Ed asks, they all need to be enrolled in DDM to be accessible to the cloud devices?
Yes.
Yes.
They do need to be a part of DDM, because I think the critical part about this is that we need to be able to manage the devices, manage the control flow, the clocking architecture needs to be managed. So it is definitely imperative that it enrolled in DDM in order for them to function.
There was another question earlier about the synchronization of audio and video signals across digital productions. And I think we all kind of know natively that video takes a lot longer to move because it's a lot fatter signal. But how do you deal with a lot of the synchronization issues?
So yeah, that's a very valid concern, and especially when you're talking about dedicated workflow specific to audio, that becomes an even bigger concern. So today, the way we're seeing it is that a lot of the video mixers that have the ability to add the latency or add an account for lip sync and all those issues, those mixing platforms kind of account for it. So the production up until that point when it hits that mixing platform is a native Dante workflow, and at that point they will kind of adjust for it. And I've seen various iterations of it. There are instances in our Dante Connect experiences where people have been doing that in the cloud and then sending out their video feed with synchronized audio and video. Some have also brought it back on-prem, and then they do the synchronization on-prem. But usually the mixing platforms have the ability to do a lot of that, and that's how some of that is.
Yeah, and to add to that, though, Frank, I mean, everything you have there, but one of the things that I think is important for those to understand is that, to really prior to Dante Connect and having a primary audio workflow here, we really had to, even on the entry point or delivering into the cloud, because we're muxing with varying, sometimes asynchronous video streams. That meant that every block of audio or however many channels, many times you had to figure out sync in this, between the different audio channels, even coming into the production. This is one of the benefits that a Dante Connect environment would allow for, because really you're only looking to need to deal with that sync point when you're basically merging back with the video at the broadcast point. So it does simplify or eliminate some of those headaches depending on how the architecture is laid out.
Here's a question that refers back to kind of like the Terraform scripting that we previously referenced. Will you offer a real-time automated scripting, routing, patching solution? We need a clock-based patch changes. They were asking for Dante controller to have command line options to do that. So how do we solve that problem for them?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question? I don't know if I heard everything there with it.
When will you offer real-time automated scripting, routing, patching solution? So I believe that Terraform does a lot of this when in the setup and configuration. So can you just speak to Terraform and how it deals with the setup of patches and configuring a broadcast automated in an automated fashion, so you can utilize just the right amount of cloud bandwidth and cloud rental that you need to?
I mean, the response would be even beyond this is a Dante experience in general. I think what everybody's asking about, in our management platform, whether that be DDM or Dante Director, what we've done is we've developed a GraphQL-based API platform. And what that does is that it gives you the ability to be granular about changes like this, subscription changes, changing subscriptions, mass changes of subscriptions, and being creative with whatever code environment you have, and giving the front end the ability to push of a button and say, this production will do this, which means like 50 different subscription changes and patching changes and a combination of all of that. So the API today enables a lot of that. The extension of that is automation platforms in the cloud like Terraform and others that people are now using, whereby you can do those subscription changes. The automation platforms do a lot more as well, because it's a part of AWS or whatever cloud environment. You can also spin up instances, tear down instances, set the subscription. So create an entire virtual production with the push of a button. But the API exists today, so I think it's about customizing those use cases to what you need, and building out your routing and patching based on your requirements. But the API enables all of that in combination with our management platform, which are Dante Domain Manager and Dante Group.
Thanks, Frank. Here's a question that's we do get asked quite frequently, but it's always good to answer it again. It's do you think that Dante Connect and Cloud also open the possibility to use Dante through private 5G standalone networks?
And so again, I guess I'll give I think I've already been called out twice on this for not giving generic responses. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I don't want to put Will on the spot making product commitments here on a call with 200 plus people. But in terms of networking requirements, Dante is an uncompressed audio, which requires distinct latency requirements, right? And that means that we need to account for network-related jitter, and other things that could potentially disrupt this. There is no compression, there's no buffering that enables you to, collect the packets and restream them, so to speak. So we need to be tight about that, which is why we always set those network requirements, whether it be saying direct connect into the cloud architecture and all that. I have not specifically dialed down into what exactly the capabilities of a 5G network or Dante on a 5G network are. But again, as long as there are the requirements in terms of the network are met, there are ways to expand it. But today our focus is a lot on Ethernet-based technologies to the cloud environment.
I will add to that. Thank you, Frank. I will make no commitments to what the future holds as far as cellular 5G. But one of the things, again, not to get too in the weeds on that, most at least in the general purpose 5G networks are very asynchronous. That means your upload and your download, they're actually very different in the requirements. So there are ways to work around that. But if anybody would really like to have a conversation on that, feel free to email me. We can, it's certainly worth having discussions. However, I can't promise a specific output today.
All right. I think we've answered a lot of great questions here. Thank you, everyone, for attending. We've enjoyed our hour with you today. Again, please feel free to reach out to any of us if you have more questions. We do have quite a bit of resources online. If you go to getdante.com, we have a full page that talks all about Dante Connect. And also, if you're interested in doing some integration work to integrate Dante into your cloud product, if you have a burgeoning software empire that you are building and you want to include Dante Connect in it, we also talk about how you can use the SDK there. If you have any other specific questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. We will either answer them ourselves or get you to the appropriate technical resource and/or integrator to help you move on your way. Once again, thank you, Frank and Will, for spending your time with us today. And again, this webcast will be shared out. The recording will be shared out that you can share with others. And we'll also be posting it to YouTube where others can watch it as well. So thanks again for joining us. And we hope to see you in our next webcast.